John Miller, Chris Williams. From the Channel Seed Studios, it's Miller and Williams. Presented by Wild Rose Casino and Hotel. 3 locations in Iowa. 3 times the fun. You'd rather be here. This is Iowa Everywhere.
What's going on? It is probably Wednesday, the 11th of October, when most of you are tuning into this, unless you're a night owl. John Miller and Chris Williams and John Miller, that would be, since I'm the one hosting the program. It is later on Tuesday night. We are presented, as always, by our friends at Wild Rose Casinos in 3 locations: Jefferson, Emmitsburg, and Clinton. 3 times the fun. John Miller, who just got back from Colorado. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Just getting, acclimated again to the flatlands. Dealt with a little mild altitude sickness the last day. Kind of sucked. Sweaty. Palm, knees weak. Mom's spaghetti and all that stuff. But no, glad to be back in Kansas City. And man, the aspens are beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful when they turn colors.
What?
I'm so old.
The aspens?
Yeah, the aspen trees, the most populous tree in North America.
I just thought that was the name of a town.
No, there probably is an aspen, Colorado would be my guess. But you kids okay over there as you're looking off to the starboard bow?
No, actually, it's not. I had the 3-year-old. She's 4 now, I guess, and I had her watching the old Coco Melon. Locked it in for her.
Yeah.
Normally she falls asleep while we do this podcast on Tuesday nights.
I love that.
And then the damn internet cut out in the middle of one of her shows. So now I got to restart the old. But the internet's fine because we're doing this show.
You basically have to you give me just a random topic and I'll talk about it for 2 minutes. Just something so random. This is a test.
Well, I have a rundown for us tonight because I actually think we have some interesting topics. But you said something before we went on that I thought was total bullshit.
Yes.
You said you're fighting altitude sickness. What does that even mean? All
right, so there's severe altitude sickness and then there's mild altitude sickness. I had mild altitude sickness where you basically, at certain elevations, your body begins to kind of fight you a little bit. So a couple of years ago, we were staying in Keystone. Keystone's about 11,000 feet. And after about 3 days into the trip, my oldest daughter, Grace, started to really feel fatigued, just felt really bad. Her chest started to hurt. And I started to Google things, and I think she was actually developing a serious case of altitude sickness. So we were in Summit County, which is about 90 minutes from the south side of Denver. And one of the true times I've panicked as a parent.
Really?
I said, listen, I'm going to drive her down the hill, meaning back to Denver. And she and I are going to spend the night in a hotel. I'll drive back up the hill the next day to fetch my wife and other kid. And we got about down to Idaho Springs, which is probably 6,500 feet. And instantly Grace felt relief and she was fine.
Really?
It was that instant.
That's crazy.
I think it's probably best. So Andrew and I went to Colorado back about 5 weeks ago. We stayed in Vail, which is about 8,200 feet. And we didn't have any problems. The first night we got there, though, we stayed in Boulder for a night. And that's basically you're acclimating. You spent one night at about 5,400 feet. Kansas City, where I live, is 900 feet-ish above sea level. And that acclimation helps you to deal with it better. But this time, we went right from the Denver airport straight up to Summit County, the Frisco, Dillon, Breckenridge area. And it's 9,000 feet. And day 4 of our trip, Saturday, watching football, I was really lethargic. Andrew and I went for a walk before that. And then that night, I slept horribly. I slept horribly the night before. And I woke up the next morning, Sunday, because we had a 10 a.m. flight. So we were up at 5:30. And I had a hoodie on because it was cold. I broke out into a sweat. I had my shirt off walking around shirtless out in the driveway. And it's freezing 19 degrees.
Yeah, and all that chest hair just popping out.
No, I shaved that. My wife likes to shave chest. So I shave that.
You still do now?
Still do. Yeah, I actually just started to. She doesn't really like body hair. She's a little put off by hairs in the shower basin. Like
Oh,
it causes her to like get
no,
gag
it does it to
reflex.
me
Like,
too.
yeah.
In fact, one of my like biggest fears in the world is walking. Anything's dry is fine. Barefooted and any sort of wet, like pavement or whatever, where there might be a hair. Like pools are horrific for me. Public pools.
So that's kind of
Honestly, like
an
it's making my
interesting
blood
phobia.
pressure rise right now.
Just thinking of that hair.
Yeah, and it's knowing that my feet might touch these hairs. Ugh.
What do you think of that?
What are you doing to that? No.
What do you think of that? Look, you
don't-
didn't even see what it is.
It's
Look, it's
hair.
a chair. It's a chair.
Oh,
That's
it's
my
hair.
body hair.
Jesus.
That was my
Lord.
chest hair.
Doesn't it just grow right back?
Yeah, that's the problem. I'm not going to
Yeah.
get laser surgery on my chest. What kind of
Oh,
weirdo
come
would do
on.
that? Probably.
You're not going to do that.
I said I'm not
Oh,
going to
okay.
get laser surgery
Oh,
on my chest.
I thought you said I'm going to get laser surgery on my chest, and I was like, you're not doing
No. Might laser the pubes off. No, not really. There might have been a few other hairs mixed in with those chest hairs. I'm not going to lie to you.
He is John Miller. My name is Chris Williams. We're in the Channel Seed
Was that
Studios.
enough filler time to get the TV
Yeah,
reset? Did we do a good job?
We got it back going. We're locked and
Okay,
loaded
good.
here.
Now
And
on with the show.
A couple of topics that I just wanted to get to today. I don't really want to talk about Iowa's quarterback situation. I feel like we've heard enough. Like people have already.
Yeah.
That's already been a thing.
I did my bit on Sunday. I heard you
Yeah.
and Hassel on Monday. You did a fine job. I did find it funny that Kirk's reaction in the post game when after a 1-9 start and a 1 quarterback rating in the first half, someone asked him afterwards if he ever considered going to the bench and bringing in Labus, and he acted like that was an incredulous. He was just incredulous. Like, what? Why would I do that? It's like, oh wow, okay.
These coaches, man.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm sitting at Trice on Saturday night. To be honest, it kind of this whole conversation kind of started with the book thing that I'm working on, and I did a deal with McCarney a couple weeks ago. Just really researching a lot right now, and I was thinking to myself on Saturday night. I was up at the press box, and have you seen the photos from pregame? They did the fireworks for the intro. Like
I saw Matty Van Dub's photo today that he's turning into a poster. That's amazing.
So I guess it was at that moment where I was looking around, and it's like, the team's 2-3, but like, God, this atmosphere is incredible. Like this, it's sold out. Like the whole day was just incredible. Like this Jack Trice thing that they did was just really perfect. It was one of my favorite things that I've ever seen in my time at Iowa State.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why, but for some reason I ran the numbers on, and these aren't perfect because some of these guys were there for like 2 years. Some of these guys played in the Big 8. This isn't perfect, but I decided to see, where Campbell was conference record-wise compared to his peers at Iowa State, because I truly believe, John, and I've been saying this for a while, that going into this new Big 12, I think Iowa State's in a really good spot because I believe that it's finally not punching up a weight class every time it goes into the ring. It will sometimes. TCU and Baylor are always going to have more resources. Like that'll never change. But it's not Texas resources. It's not Oklahoma. It's a different type of deal. Whatever. That's a different conversation. To me, I found these numbers to be staggering, and this is coming off of a team that wasn't good a year ago, right? After a 4-win year. I'm going to read you prior Iowa State coaches and their winning percentage in the Big 12/Big 8. Johnny Majors won 27% of his games. Earl Bruce was by far the best prior to Campbell at 43% of his games. Donnie Duncan, 26%. Jim Kreiner, 34%. Jim Walden, 31%. Dan McCarney, 28%. Gene Chizik, 14%.
Oh, gosh.
Paul Rhodes, 26%. Matt Campbell, 52%. And Matt's been there a while now, right? So it's not like he's had 3 good years and that's skewing everything. I mean, that's factoring in
Right.
a really good year with the Fiesta Bowl and then a really bad year, which was last year. So it kind of evens it out. And I guess what hit me was, and I've realized this for a while, but I guess what pulled it from me is not only is he's basically winning half of his games, which there's a lot of fan bases out there, including yours, that would, scoff at this, I'm sure. But I guess my point is, look at what he's doing over a long haul now compared to anyone else who has ever been there. And I don't know. I thought the number really stood out to me, and maybe it's because I was looking for it, so I'm a little bit biased. I thought that this number would give me some sort of, but to me, Iowa State now, every Saturday, you think they can win. Even if they don't, you think that they have a chance. Right. And, yeah. I mean, they were a 7-point dog to that TCU team and just killed them on Saturday. So, I don't. What do you think of that? You've been around this thing longer than I have, believe it or not.
So, I'll tell you this. I was really surprised when you sent me this and I saw that Dan McCarney's conference winning percentage is 28.4%.
Yeah, but he was so bad early on. But yeah, you're right. Me too. That's the one that stood out.
It would be good to look at the splits over his first half of his career and his second half of his career. But what instantly came to mind was that was an era where if you beat Iowa, it did not matter. It truly was the era of Iowa State's Super Bowl. That era has been long gone. Okay, that doesn't exist anymore because Iowa State is, they've been there, done that, and it's no longer a novelty. When Dan led Iowa State to 5 consecutive victories over Iowa after 15 consecutive losses from Iowa State to Iowa, he could have been on Iowa's version of Mount Rushmore. Where would they put that at? Decorah or somewhere where they have a little limestone they could cut it out? So that's what surprised me, that his conference winning percentage was that. What's that?
Council Bluffs, the Bluffs.
Council Bluffs, right? They could use something like that.
Right there as you're on your way up there.
Yep. Dan McCarney right there. Who'd be the other 3?
For the entire state or just Iowa State?
Just Iowa State.
I mean, I think you have to put Pollard up there.
You could put a billboard right next to it and have Pollard on the billboard.
Johnny Orr.
I think Dan Gable.
Yeah, but, it would make sense, but he's a Hawk.
I get it. Johnny Orr, absolutely.
Cale Sanderson.
But yeah, you kind of have
Fred. It's Fred Hoiberg, Johnny Orr, Jamie Pollard, and Dan McCarney.
Okay, and I like Jamie. I can't wait the next time I see him.
George Niang.
Well, there you go. So anyhow,
Brock Purdy.
Well, maybe he's getting there. The good old system quarterback, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, that's wild too, because I would have never thought this, but I had a guy the other day. It's if Purdy goes on, wins the NFL MVP, do you put up a statue for him? Does that, you know what I'm saying? Because I said this over the weekend. Mac was there, and it's just it's pageantry when Mac's back, right? He wears his baller
listen
suit.
To him all day long.
Yeah. And I make the point to a friend, which is actually how I got started with this. Are we in the because Johnny Orr has a statue. And I'd argue that there were better basketball coaches at Iowa State than Johnny Orr that don't have statues. But it was what he represented. It was this guy choosing Iowa State over Michigan and saying, "Oh, we can be good too." Right? It was his personality, and everybody could rally behind it. And he's the godfather of Hilton Magic. And I think I could make that McCarney argument that because I think without McCarney doing what he did, Matt Campbell's not here doing this. But then you look at it, it's 28%.
Yeah, that's You know what? You're not going to get me to slander Dan. And it feels like you're setting me up for that. I know you're
no.
I
just it's fascinating conversation because the wins weren't there.
It really is. I was shocked. I'm still shocked, but I'm sitting there staring at that 28. I mean, the number is so bad I can see it without my glasses on. But Dan, here was my view of Dan, and I was doing radio on KXNO during the Dan McCarney era, towards the tail end of it. But of course, I was very intimately aware of the Iowa State thing prior to that. Dan was almost like back in the olden times, talking about Roman, Greek times over in Europe when they were fighting with swords and things like that. Sometimes they would not fight or wage battles with armies. Sometimes both sides would nominate a champion, and those two would fight representing their side. And in a way, I kind of see Dan McCarney as the Cyclones champion. He is the person that came out, even though he was a former Iowa coach, former Iowa City guy, bled black and gold, hated Iowa State. But once he went over there, he went all the way. Dan's a Cyclone. And Dan was the Iowa State fans' champion at a time when they really needed one. Mm-hmm. And when he got that first dub against Iowa that snapped that streak, that was huge. And then when he reeled off 5 in a row, including the 2002 game, it ruined Iowa's season, or ruined Iowa's chance maybe at a national championship. Dan was Iowa State football's first champion in multiple decades. And I think the juice that he instilled in that program, the pride that he helped Iowa State fans feel, the beginning to start believing that maybe we can do good things. I mean, I was in Arrowhead Stadium when Iowa State lost to Florida State, which was bull crap. All right. Iowa State should have won that game. But Iowa State didn't falter. They bounced back. Iowa State began to punch. They began to maybe punch higher than their weight class, to use an analogy you brought up earlier in the show. Does Dan deserve a statue? If Iowa State chose to commission and erect a statue in honor of Dan McCarney, I certainly wouldn't. I'd say, okay, yeah, I see it. If they didn't, I'd say, okay, yeah, I see it. I mean, I see 28.4%. But Dan McCarney represents far more than a winning percentage to the history of Iowa State football. Dan McCarney basically, I think, maybe made Iowa State fans feel like, hey, I'm in a dark alley. I've been getting my ass kicked, but I got this guy with me now. I got a chance.
And everybody loved him. That was the thing, too. It's like,
still do. I don't know people that
he
don't.
is a rock star walking around there, man. Like, you should see it. Like, I don't know. What is he? I think he's 70 now. He is a freaking rock star walking around there. And he's such a baller, too. He wears these tan suits. What is it? Seersucker? That's what it's called. He's just baller. When I am that age, I want to be like Dan McCarney.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's pretty smooth. This is, I don't know if you were going to go here, but can I do like a tangential, interjection here and say, in 10 years from now, okay, 10 years from now, next year, Iowa's backdoor pass to probably seeming better than they are as a program as it relates to this upper tier. Because I think a lot of Iowa fans feel that, Iowa's winning percentage for the last, since Kirk Ferentz has got there, is probably in the top 25 range of college football, right? But we all know that they've been, I think, getting some passes in the Big Ten West. That ends next year. This week, there are 6 teams who will be Big Ten teams next year in the top 10 of the AP poll, right? We talked about this weeks ago. Iowa is the 8th best program, maybe, in the Big Ten. When you look at it next year from a historical winning percentage, like say since Hayden Fry started there, it's not going to be easy sledding. In 10 years from right now, if you had $100 to wage, and let's just say it paid like, plus $1,000 just to keep it interesting for you, who would you wager has a better conference winning percentage? Iowa or Iowa State? From 2024 through 2033, 10 football seasons, which football program will have the better conference winning percentage, I would probably put my money on Iowa State.
That is a fascinating question.
Think of this too.
Conference winning. Yeah.
Conference winning percentage. Okay.
Yeah. I think it'll be, I think I would put my money on Iowa State. I think Vegas would probably have a slight edge to Iowa just because of
just to suck in the Hawk money
history. Yeah. No, but
to suck that money in.
This is my whole point. Like, and I would make the opposite argument for basketball. I think Otzelberger's job's harder because, like,
that conference is one of the best basketball conferences, if not the best basketball conference in the nation. Certainly last year, according to Ken.
Well, and it's going to get worse, and we'll talk about that.
Right, with the G squad maybe. So yeah, I love it. But yeah, think about it, contemplate it. In 10 years from now, and there's Iowa State fans listening to or watching this who have dealt with the Tavern Hawk thing, who've dealt with WHO, Des Moines, and Iowa football being beamed from river to river, and all of those things that Iowa State fans have felt were a perceived or real advantage for Iowa. And now Iowa is going to be in a league where the two best winning percentages make it to the Big Ten championship game. It could be a decade or more longer before Iowa gets back to Indianapolis if they don't this year.
Well, stack it up, like where they belong in these hierarchies of these new leagues. Well, okay, so we're going to put Iowa at 8.
Well, so let's go to Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. All right, there's 3 that USC, I think we would say Washington, are higher than Iowa. USC, Oregon. Washington, and Oregon. All right, there's 6. Wisconsin, there's 7. It's no better than 8th.
No,
it's no better than 8th.
Iowa's a better program than Nebraska, but I think you can make an argument that might be a better job. Like that's a different conversation. As far as resources and stuff like that goes, they don't have an Iowa State in the state. They don't, right? Like that. That's all I'm saying. Iowa's clearly better than them.
I wouldn't try to defend against you in a court of law. All right, I would look for some. I would try to make a settlement before I had to debate that. Nebraska's football program they've got national
titles.
Tradition, right? It's Nebraska. If Nebraska continues to suck or be just mad at the way that they've been, if they do this for another decade, then we can, as long as Iowa doesn't spit the bit. So let's just say it's 8th at best. We can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, 8th at best.
So where is Iowa State in this hierarchy of this new Big 12?
Well, let's go through the list. TCU. Okay,
TCU,
1.
Utah up there.
Kansas
Utah. State.
So we're at 3 for sure. Right. What about BYU? I think historically you'd have to say BYU's program is better. And when you look at their built-in recruiting base, their built-in eyeballs for with the Mormons around the country, I would put them ahead of Iowa State's program. But I'm not saying it's a wide chasm.
I think Cincinnati is recruiting base.
Yeah.
Texas Tech has a ton of resources. Okay, here.
That's 6. But here's the thing.
Baylor.
The
difference between 1 and 8 isn't nearly as stark as where you're
at.
That's it. That's the difference.
That's exactly where I was going. That's it. So again, this is a thing where from week to week in this new Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma, I think it's going to be an incredibly entertaining conference. It's going to be a wildly unpredictable conference, right? Now, Colorado, we didn't mention Colorado. They're coming. Maybe you did.
Yeah, give me them without Dion, and that job changes a lot.
Agreed. And how long is Dion even going to be there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the first Sun Belt job that opens up. He gone. He ain't stay in Colorado. But you're right. The difference is the gradient between this upper tier and say 7 and 8 is probably about the gap between Big Ten 6 to 9. So I agree. I think Iowa State
you can see it right now, John. Try and power rate the Big 12 3 through 14 right now, or 3 through 12. Right. It's impossible.
Yep. And that's going to be the future, and that's going to be really entertaining. And thankfully, the Big 12 has been able to secure a very competitive television contract for many years to come. And they now have a chance to try to make this as entertaining as possible and with as many eyeballs as possible. And my guess is they probably will have more eyeballs watching them than some people want to say and predicting the demise. I don't think that's going to happen. This isn't the old douchebag days where I, played the part of the hawk troll and said that Iowa State's going to be relegated to the MAC. And looking back on it now, that was a really dickheaded thing to say, because there were a lot of people that were really scared about that and fearful about that. Probably meant some people's jobs, concern over that.
I just left what it was a really good job to come and start this blog with a bunch of friends.
The Cyclone Fanatic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who never mind. Never mind. I'm not going to be it. Yeah. So yeah, that was stupid. You're not that we're nowhere near that. This is going to be an incredibly entertaining league. And I think that you could make a case that over the next 10 years, starting next year, Iowa State has a better conference winning percentage. Now, some people are saying, well, duh, John, they're not having to play USC. And
that's the whole point. That's the point of the conversation.
I even forgot to say UCLA, by the way. Yeah. But that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa has been successful. Those memories that I have, those bowl games that I've went to, the conversations I've had, the joy that I've had, all that's real and never going away. But I do think in recent years, you'd have to really be myopic to not recognize and admit that Iowa's record has been inflated due to the poor quality of competition in the Big Ten West. And I don't know how else you want to say it. Sure, they beat Ohio State 55-24. The last time they'd beaten Ohio State before that was maybe a decade prior to that. And then before that was like 1990 or 1991, the Gang Lu murders on Iowa's campus, and they took the decals off. Maybe there was one other before that, but it's rare. It's rare. Iowa victories over Ohio State, rare. Iowa got some licks in on Michigan and Penn State in the early part of the Kirk Ferentz era, but that has changed direction quickly. And yeah, I think this is the reality for Iowa. I think a 6-3 conference record for Iowa in the new Big Ten probably feels pretty good. Probably feels really good. 7-2 rarefied air. 5-4, 6-3.
7-2 will potentially get you in this new playoff in the new Big Ten.
Yeah, if you go 3-0 in your non-con and you're 7-2,
yeah,
got a shot.
You might be in this playoff. Isn't that large?
I could be wrong. I know I've pissed some of you off. That's okay.
Well, it'll depend. Like it's like, you ask me. Well, I mean, if Kirk and Brian are there, like I would take Iowa State in that bet.
Right.
Because I just
easily.
Just think that it's kind of like, to me, it's like watching Belichick right now. Like I'm like, what are you doing, man?
To me, you've probably experienced this. Most people have, especially who live in colder climates in the winter. You ever be walking through your house in the dead of winter, and all of a sudden there's a smell that comes in, and you're like, what in the world is that smell? Where is that smell coming from? I don't know what this is. And you look under your couch cushions, and you look under your couch, and you look behind everything, and you realize, oh no, it's a dead mouse behind the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Iowa football sort of smells like to me right now.
Had that happen to a roommate in college. Broke up with a girl, and she put a whole thing of bananas under his mattress. They just rotted.
Dude, sounds like bro made a really good decision, because that's how the fatal attraction stuff starts.
Yeah,
bananas under the
bed. Our apartment. Next thing
you do, huh?
Our apartment smelled bad enough already because it's 4 college dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. The next thing you know, a year later, if you stay with her and you get more serious and then you break up with her, that's when the horse head comes into the bed.
Yeah. Not cool. So, have you read at all about this Gonzaga to the Big 12 thing for basketball?
I read Brent McMurphy's rehash of somebody else who broke the story. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Go ahead and set the stage for those who don't. I'm about ready to jump
Well,
ahead of you and break all sort of journalistic rules.
here's what I know, and some of this is asking questions on my own too. Some of this may not even be out there. I don't know. I've given it to my premium people over at Cyclone Fanatic.
We breaking news here tonight?
I don't know, because I really haven't checked to see what's out there. I know that I'm not breaking like this part. The generality of it is that Brett Yormark, he realizes his place in the world, his being the Big 12 in football, right? And that is a distant third. And maybe not even third if you factor in the ACC. It just depends on, are you going off of television money? Are you going off top to bottom, this Big 12 is a better football conference next year than the ACC, but they still have Clemson and Florida State, so that would make them better. So it kind of just, you know what you are. You're not the SEC, and you're not the Big 10. And he, for a while now, has seen an opportunity with basketball, and to the point I've been making for 5 years, John. Like, you remember when ESPN Plus started putting conference games on? What's the first game they did every year? Kansas, Iowa State. Why do they do that? Because people will buy subscriptions to watch it, because they have big fan bases that are passionate, and that's the whole point, and that's the subscription model. My whole point's been, like, people will pay for basketball. Like, I know it doesn't draw the ratings, but if we're going to more of a subscription model for all this stuff anyways, people will pay to watch their teams in the dead of winter when they have nothing else to do. I know these people. And I think what he is seeing and his vision here is, I think he wants to sell basketball as a second television package. So in the past, everything is rolled into one. So when you buy a Big Ten television contract, you get women's basketball, you get volleyball, you get everything. And it's all rolled into one, which is why you see all that stuff on Big Ten Network, right? Like, that's who owns it. Well, Yormark believes that there's going to be value in taking the Big 12, if it is the premier basketball conference in the country, which he believes it is. He believes that he can sell it at the next television rights as a separate entity. What that would include is some expansion with potentially Big 12 only schools. Now, we have seen this, right? The Big East doesn't have football. So Fox, I don't know what that contract's worth, but they pay for basketball only. So this isn't crazy. But Gonzaga's a draw, and they give you that late night television window, and he thinks that there's money to be made there. The question I have is, what's after this? Like, are you going to try and raid the Big East? Are you going to – yeah, I don't know. Like, is it St. John's? I have no idea. But this is a really I think this is happening. Like, I think it's 95 – this might be done, okay?
Right.
From what I understand, and this is my own contacts telling me this, but then I would also add, and you know this as well as I do, when this realignment stuff starts to hit headlines, it's done. Like, it especially now, like because it sounded like that had gone away. They got their Pac-12 schools. Now I think Yormark is fixing to make a couple of more moves. And so, but like, I would also, I wouldn't do it if I'm Gonzaga. You're out there, you're basically like an independent. You get to go to all the tournaments. You got all these guys who come out there and then they look like all-stars playing against the rest of these guys in the Western Conference or whatever the hell it's called. I wouldn't do that and then go be a geographical outlier and be taking flights, in these small-ass charter planes to Kansas and Iowa in the middle of the week. Like, I think that it's a bad move for them, but for the Big 12, you see what he's doing. I don't like it. I don't want this to happen. Stay at your 16 with the new schools and go at it, but I think this guy's got real aspirations to create some sort of power basketball league, like an SEC-type conference that's basketball only with the Big 12.
I just think if you do something like that, it enhances the survivability and health not just survivability, but better health of the league as a whole, adding back in football, and you're the premier basketball league in the country, or certainly like every year you can't have that debate without mentioning the Big 12. I mean, I get you not liking it, but I think it makes a lot of sense as an overall brand for the conference. Now, you're a WWE fan. There's like what, Nitro, Monday Night Raw. What are some other shows?
Nitro is like from the 90s, bro.
Okay, well, help me out.
You got Raw, SmackDown. You got AEW now, Dynamite.
What networks do those air on?
TNT, TBS, USA, Fox.
So one of those shows is on one network and then the other show is on a different network?
Yeah.
And they're making the money from selling multiple packages of it on multiple nights. And what was your
correct,
Mark's background?
Daddy-o.
What was your Mark's background?
Rockaware, Rock Nation, Entertainment, TV.
Entertainment. It's telling you.
And I would also add, my friend, do not forget about our friends in the streaming industry.
Our friends.
I'm telling you, like Amazon would pay, they would overpay for something like that.
It's to me, it feels like it's time. All right. You look at Amazon and you look at the Amazon Prime. How many Americans have memberships in Amazon Prime membership? A ton. I know Elise is right there. A ton.
No, she can't hear. I got it in here. And I think she's
a shit ton have memberships to Amazon Prime. Okay. And it's going to be so easy. Heck, Amazon, they charge $25 or $29 for those Amazon Fire Sticks. They should give those away for free, frankly. But probably enough people will pay for it. It's time for an Amazon or an Apple, but I think Amazon is better. Distribution network is always key in business. It's very hard to build, but once you have built it, you can run limitless opportunities, monetizable opportunities through it. And both Apple and Amazon are positioned to do this. I think it's time. It's time. That'd be a big roll of the dice, but it's time.
What would be interesting is that, because the Big 12 is currently in bed with Fox and ESPN, and I don't think that they'll want to lose that reach. What would make sense to me for an Amazon is if you owned the third tier. So that would be like Cyclones TV, which is currently on ESPN Plus. It's not called that anymore. It's Big 12 Now is what it's called. So that means you get all these crappy non-conference games, any volleyball, women's basketball, that type of stuff. You go to this one spot on ESPN Plus. Like my vision, to start with, would be that's where one of these things are housed. Would be like an Amazon. You know what I mean? And you're starting to get at people at, because I know for a fact, John, I think the Big 12 very realistically could have ended up with an Amazon game if the Big 10 would have. From what I understand, Amazon didn't want to do it unless they could get 3 different leagues. So Amazon was wanting to get a Big 10 game, a Big 12 game, and a Pac-12 game. Because they didn't want to just get in bed with one. They wanted it to be more of a well-rounded type deal. Whereas the Pac-12, they're honestly Apple was talking to the Pac-12. That almost happened. That made a lot of sense. You look at the stuff Apple wants. It's soccer. It's Formula One. It's the being associated with Stanford makes a lot of sense for what Apple was wanting. But I think Amazon, they're really, really, really pushing to get this NBA package. This next one, it would be like the extra innings for baseball, or what YouTube TV has now for the NFL, and they're not going away. That's my thing, and I think your Mark's seeing this. And if it's strictly dollar signs, right? If it's only dollar signs that they care about, those options are going to be there when this next one comes up. Amazon or Apple will have a college football playoff game in 2 years. You mark my word. When that new contract comes, that's why they're opening this thing up. It's why the Super Bowl moves around. It's why if you look at the NFL package, you've got Amazon on Thursday. You've got Fox, CBS. Oh, now we're going to have an NBC game. We have ESPN Plus games now for these London ones. That's what they're doing here. And I think your mark is seen into the future being like, it's not just going to be Fox and ESPN because they don't have all the money anymore, and we need more inventory to take to market.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. Just, remember Fox owns like 51% of the Big Ten network. So they kind of get it coming and going on that. And I think the Big Ten and Fox, that's just guarantees that they're going to continue to be partners for a long time.
No doubt.
Unless Fox gets sold off to some other entity. But yeah, I think it makes sense. And I think it just helps the future survivability and competitiveness of the Big 12. Are you still of the belief that we all just get to like one super conference of teams and just make 4 divisions and that's how the playoff gets bracketed? Do you think that's where we're headed?
I think contraction is going to happen next. I don't know if that answers your question, but
well, tell me about it. Are we talking relegation?
Yes.
Not
like. I don't think you can do that in college athletics. Like I know that
you can't. The amount of money that you need to invest in resources and no way. Right. Yeah.
Think about like if you're the athletic director in a conference where there's relegation, like what do you do with the soccer team? Like you have to know it's a business. You have to know whatever. Especially with like Title IX and like you just can't do it. I think this has been my theory for a while now. It's all been expansion. What's the next thing? We're already seeing this, John. Remember back when you were on radio, remember how taboo it was for a conference to not have an equal television package, a sharing? Because the Big 12 used to do that. Like Texas would get $15 million and Iowa State would get $6 million or whatever. This is back when the numbers weren't that big.
Right.
Like, it's already becoming now, like, Oregon and Washington are saying, hey, we'll take half the amount, just let us into your league. And you've got Clemson and Florida State that are saying, we'll stay in the ACC, but you better give us twice as much as everybody else. What's next? When Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State and Michigan are looking at Vanderbilt and Rutgers and Indiana that aren't carrying their weight, but we're still going to let them take $100 million a year that we're funding. What's next? They're gonna contract. Like I truly believe that. Vanderbilt's a founding member of the SEC. I don't think they'll be in the league at 15 years. That's the only way that they can make more money. You can't grow anymore. Like it's not possible.
So in 15 years, 15 years from now, let's say there's contraction, like you just hypothesized. What do you think the Big Ten teams that remain could make per year? 150 million?
Man,
200 million?
I don't think so because
quarter million? 500 million?
No.
Is that too high?
No, I don't necessarily think the numbers are going to keep going up.
Is that too? Oh, so you don't think the amount of money they make goes up, right?
I'm just saying, look at it this way. I mean, ESPN is a very different company now than it was 2 years ago. They wouldn't be able to pay as much right now.
They wouldn't pay as many.
How do you keep the number going up if you're Ohio State or Michigan? You got to get rid of some of these, trim the fat so you can eat more.
Okay, so then you just said that you don't think the number's going to go up, but now you say you need to trim the fat so the number can go up. What do you think?
That's how the number goes up if you don't have as many mouths to feed.
If there's contraction, hypothetical, if there is contraction.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah. Okay, I see. I'm sorry.
What's
now
the
we're on
number
the
in 15 years?
I don't know.
250 million?
I mean, that's going to be dictated a lot by Congress, too, let's be honest, and the NCAA and all that stuff. Like,
I want the man to give me a number so I can show him where he's wrong and share with everyone.
200.
$200 million. Okay. Each and every Big Ten team gets nearly $1 billion per year in research grant money by being a part of their Big Ten network of academic institutions, right? The Big Ten isn't contracting anyone because it's still federal grant research money dwarfs anything that the athletic departments do, and they equitably share it across. And a Rutgers may suck ass on the football field, but they've got a really good research university. Okay,
so what happens if there's a breakaway then?
What do you mean that there's a breakaway?
So like you're like, what happens if it turns into we're gonna have the top 32 teams or the top 30 teams, and they're gonna play in their own college football division? Purdue's not going to be a part of that.
No, Iowa may not be.
But what happens? So can Ohio State be a part of that, but Purdue's not?
I think you get back to not stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. And these universities these presidents allegedly vote on who to let in and who not to let in. Nebraska was let in, but then they very quickly, their AAU certification was revoked. They're the only non-AAU member in the conference. So frankly, if there's going to be contraction in the Big Ten, I'd probably start right there from a dollars and cents standpoint. Again, realizing and knowing that the Big Ten institutions get nearly $1 billion a year each in research grant dollars. That dwarfs anything. I mean, we're sitting over here saying, oh my gosh, the Big Ten is going to get $100 million a year per school in TV rights. It's like 9 or 10x less than what the universities generate in research dollars. Now, this isn't true of every university, but it is of the Big Ten. So Ohio State wants to leave the Big Ten, leave the Big Ten to go be a part of this new football collective where they might make $200 million a year, which could jeopardize their $900 million to $1 billion a year. That is not. So happening.
Why didn't that save the Pac-12? I can't imagine that the Big Ten academically was much better than that old Pac-12. Why didn't that save the Pac-12?
So I think I don't think Oregon State and I don't think Washington State are AAU members. Cal, Stanford are, of course. Washington and Oregon are. Colorado also is. I think Utah actually might be too. And I'm not saying
pretty sure Arizona is.
I know whatever. Arizona is, but Arizona State is not. Right. There were reasons why some of those schools were never going to get into the Big Ten. And I'm still a little irritated that the Big Ten didn't bring in Stanford. I mean, it's an unbelievable institution, but I think that the
but that doesn't that argue the whole academic point though? Like that?
No. I think it does. And I was saying,
like, why wouldn't you want Stanford if it's that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why'd they take Oregon over Stanford?
Oregon is an AAU member.
I understand.
I'm not saying that Stanford
but it ain't Stanford.
One of the top 5 academic, probably top 2 academic institutions. I would agree with you. I'm just telling you what I know to be physically a fact as it relates to the Big Ten's consortium of sharing research dollars and also sharing research. I just don't see that being broken unless, in some world, Ohio's. Well, here's the thing. I still think that the NCAA is going to dissolve and we're going to have like a collection of club teams, a club style
I agree.
Organization that oversees it all. And the football programs will no longer be officially affiliated with the universities.
Okay, so that's how we get to what I'm talking about then.
Right, that's how it happens. Is that once the athletic departments are no longer officially governed by the NCAA and they are more club teams, which makes a lot of sense. Also, liabilities potentially future for these universities. That is how you get your cake and eat it too.
If you're a club team, do you have to abide by Title IX?
No, I don't think so.
Just trying to think like with NIL and all that stuff and paying these players. If you're a club team, that could be how they get around it with football having an 85.
Yeah. You pay rent to use Kinnick Stadium. You pay rent to use Jack Trice Stadium. The Iowa State Football Club and the Iowa Football Club, they are out fundraising for themselves. There's no more, Iowa State Foundation or Iowa Foundation. There is a governing body that oversees it that will have like a commissioner. I think that absolutely is coming. And then these universities will no longer have liability as it relates to, 20 years down the road when science absolutely can hone in on brain damage that's caused from this sport and all the lawsuits that are going to come, I don't have to deal with that.
God, we covered a lot of ground tonight, John.
Feels good. And I got to tell you, Jimmy Buffett's last song before he passed away, that's on the air now, you can Google it. That's where we're getting to at this podcast right now.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. That's the only Jimmy Buffett song. Oh, the cheeseburger song.
Jimmy released a song. It was released posthumously. It was the last song he recorded. Paul McCartney's actually on the bass of this song. Google it, and you will laugh. Okay? You're Googling it while we speak?
Yeah, you told me to Google it.
Okay, you're
Jimmy
right. I guess I need to keep talking.
Last recorded song, Like My Dog?
No.
That's what Google says.
Okay, well,
Bubbles
maybe
Up.
it was second to... No. Gosh dang it. This went horribly wrong. No, I'm not even going to tell you now.
My gummy just kicked in.
That's the one. That's the one. That's the stage of the podcast that we're at right now.
He really did. He did 3 of them together, and I read the other 2 first, and then I saw.
You read the other 2. I'm like, this is a bad bit. This is a horrible bit. You're bringing me down, literally. Getting parched in here, man.
Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. This was good to get away from the 6 of 21 and Matt Campbell hot seat and all that garbage stuff that we usually talk about. He's John Miller. My name is Chris Williams. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.